Okay, the subject I'd like to start with today is departmentalizing. Many people have things in their life that they like, things in their life they like less. We'll just use that term. And we have to put them in the right place. I'm going to start off with a question, which I believe that this question is, I would say, the difference between men and boys, so to speak. Maybe they have a hard time understanding it, but this is the difference between men and women. If I ask this question to a group of men, I think 90% of the men will answer one way. And ask the exact same question to a group of women, 90% of them will answer the exact opposite. Okay, now you know why we get married. Okay, this is the question. Could you love somebody and hate that person at the same time? So the answer to that question, the simple answer to that question, is that those two things are a stira, right? You can't love somebody and hate the person at the same time. Okay, that's the assumption. That's the male version of this kind of an idea. And if you'd ask that same question to a lady, the lady would say, what's the problem? Why can't you love somebody and hate the person at the same time? So anybody over here that would like to stick up for the lady version, I would like to hear their explanation. Anybody want to take on that?
Yeah, I would take on the saying, do you hate the person or you hate what that person does? You can love a person, but you hate what that person does, and therefore then that's a hate.
Can I ask you a question? I like what you're saying, but I want to just turn it around. The other way around. How do you know? Maybe you hate the person what he does. Whoa! You have to bench Gaiman. What happened to you? We lost you.
I think his phone is the one that's creating the echo.
I think so also.
Creating the echo.
Okay. Anyways, so this is the subject. Can I love the person and hate the person at the same time?
So the answer is, do you do that the way you do anything at the same time? You can't do two things simultaneously.
I think that you can eat and you can read at the same time.
I'm talking about two things that require feelings or thoughts.
Well,
so you vacillate between the two.
That's true, but
that maybe not the scholars means.
I didn't hear what you said. One more time.
Rabbi Yisrael, you gotta shut your.
Okay, he's off. I think he's off.
So that's what Dr. Scholars means. That they can back and forth very, very quickly.
But 1 second. I didn't. You know what? You're way past me. I don't know if that's what Dr. Scholars means or not. We could discuss that at a different time. We discussed that at a different time. But even if it's not simultaneously, it's linear. A minute I love the guy, and a minute I hate the guy, a minute I love the guy, a minute I hate the guy. The guy's going to get shivers, you know what I mean? How can you have, whether it's exactly at the same time or one after the other, the guy's like a shiggle fruitcake. There's something missing with the guy. Or not. That's the question. Whether I'm talking about having them exactly at the same second or in tandem, opposite emotions, I'm not really discussing that issue. That's you have to speak to a real psychologist to know the answer to that.
No, I'm saying, but that's the difference between men and women.
Why is that the difference between men and women?
We're more muchlat in what we're holding.
1 second. But you can be holding muchlat. You love the guy 1 minute and you hate him the next minute. Does that exist or not?
It's not going to bounce back and forth. That's what I'm saying.
Okay, so in other words, so your answer is those who say that they have opposite emotions, they don't have any concrete emotion at all. It's not concrete. It's half-baked. That's just fine. I'm willing to accept your opinion as your opinion. I didn't accept it as the truth.
You can love certain things and hate certain things about a person.
So when I ask you, what's your feeling about that person?
You love them on one hand. You do hate them on another hand. Depends on what attribute you're thinking of. Because of the certain relationship that you have with them, you love them. But at the same time, you hate certain actions from them, or you hate a certain aspect.
Okay. Now, okay, fine. I believe this is the subject which I would like to talk about, and it has its place in this week's parsha. But I want to ask the following philosophical question: is the person anything more than the summation of all of his actions? If I take away all of his actions, it's just a lump on a log. You don't love him or hate him. They're not very exciting. So I could love this that he does, and I hate that he does. I say, what about the person?
I like to say two things. Number one is in psychology, a person can never hold conflicting views simultaneously. And the second thing is, that's you can't say I love to be pregnant and I hate to be pregnant, whatever. And the other thing is that there is an aspect to a person which is the person's kishkas, his neshama, nothing to do with his actions.
What is that?
That is beside his actions. His actions, a person's action can cause us to like him more or like him less, but you can like a person because he is a person, because he's a Jew, because he's your parent, because whatever. Nothing to do with his actions.
So you're in a very good place as far as I'm concerned. This has to be worked out a little bit, and I'm going to start off with a pasuk in this week's parsha. Yaakov gives a bracha to all of his sons, and as Chazal point out, those brachas were not so friendly. Many of them, they were quite telling them their weaknesses, which is in a sense giving them the strength. The trainer, he plays to the pro's weak spot so that he should build it up. So Yaakov Avinu Lahavdil told them where their weak spots were in order that they should be able to improve those places. And when he discusses Shimon and Levi, Shimon and Levi Achim Klechomos Mecherosehem, they are, I actually have the holding an English translation. Stolen tools are their weapons. How's that? Okay. They destroy the city. Says Rashi, accursed is their rage, for it is mighty. Says Rashi, this is great to have an English chumash, makes life much easier. Or apam, afilu b'shas techacha, even when he's giving them techacha, v'kilel ella apam. He only cursed their anger. He didn't curse them. Gil, are they separate than their anger?
Yes.
I would like to share with you the following incident which happened to me when I was a bacher. And this incident flashes in my mind many, many times. And it's really a horrific story from a serious point of view, but it's really quite hysterical. I was on a bus, and this psychedelic kind of guy, yarmulke, 16 different colors, wearing a cape, a poncho cape with tzitzis on it, and sneakers, and you got the picture of what this guy looks like. Looks like something straight out of the Mardi Gras or something like that, or the circus. And he comes on and he's chomping away on licorice. And he sits down next to me on the bus, and he says to me, "Maybe you like some licorice." So I said, "No, thank you." And he says, I hope you don't mind, but this is my vice. So I just looked at him and I said dryly that Jews don't have vices. And that was the end of our conversation. I don't think he had any idea what I was talking about. And then he gets off the bus. And this is one part of the story. Now, what does he mean to say that it's my vice?
Amara Hatter.
Yeah, that's correct, but you have to, that's the short version. You have to explain what you're saying. What is he saying? He's saying, I'm not responsible for that which I'm doing because I call it a vice. And once it's a vice, that Ki'ilu gives me permission to not be in control of myself. Right? That's what he meant to say, Yechiel, right? Anyways, hello, I think we lost him. I think he went to Florida together with his. Anyways, so that's what it means. That's what it means that he has a vice. We don't have vices. It's not me, it's my vice. I'm acting out. I'm not responsible because I'm a product of my environment. There's all these cliches of the 20th, 21st century, why people have disclaimers. They're not responsible for that which they do. We believe you are responsible for that which you do. That's the bottom line. And person may have a place of release. You want to call that your vice, but you are responsible. You don't have an excuse. When we say that the Apam is not part of them, is it part of their DNA that they are angry people? There are some people that are always on time, and there are some people that are always late. That's just the way they are. There are people who are late even to things that they would like to be on time to. And the people that are on time are even on time to the places they don't want to go to. It's a tchunas hanefesh. So I told this once to a guy, I said that you don't get schar for coming on time to davening if you go on time to do your averis also, right? It has to be that you come on time to daven, but you come late to your averis. That would be quite a feat. But if you just are using your tchuna, and some tchunas are good tchunas, you're using it in the right place, that's fine. You're using it in the wrong place, it's not good. I just mentioned, I think I said this at some time, but I'll say it again. I was a teenager, and my father, Erik Kaporis Mishkova, he said to me the following statement: there's no such thing as a kanois. Sometimes you have to do a maisa kanois. So 10 years later, I showed him a medrash about Pinchas Eliyahu. That Eliyahu comes to the bris, and he said, I don't want to come there because there are people that do averis there, and HaKadosh Baruch Hu says, I'll be Michael the father. And a whole mechila thing has to happen to people that are by the bris. Otherwise, Eliyahu, who's the kanoi, can't come. So I told my father, you see, this medrash seems to say that there is such a thing as a kanoi. And all he did was smirk at me and say, no, so now I answer your question. And we all understand the answer. There's two different aspects, depends what you're talking about. Okay? And that's what we're going to discuss, that there is such a thing as a person's personal makeup. And there is something which a person is responsible for. But even things that are part of a person's makeup can also be altered and changed. Just like the medication, which some of you may have in your veins right now, it can alter something in your body. So too, Musar can change. Things are part of a person's personality. We can change. We have that ability. So we don't have an excuse to have a vice. We have to do something. But yes, it's true what Gil said, that there are certain things which people do and certain things that people are. Some people have a job and some people have a career. A person who has a job, that's not what he is. That's what he does. A person who has a career, that's what he is, at least to a certain extent. I don't think I'm saying anything which we're not familiar with. So we say over here that the person what should he have been Makalo?
Exactly what he did, nothing else.
So it doesn't sound like Rashi is pointing out anything spectacular.
A non-thinking person would think he should have cursed them.
Or maybe it's part of them.
Maybe it became part of them. After you do something enough, it becomes part of you.
I just spent 5 minutes trying to explain that people are born with different tendencies. Some people are born hot-headed, and some people are born mild-tempered.
And it can become part of you if you do something repetitively enough. It can become part of you.
That's true. But once you just said you just fell into it, Gil, you said that it can become part of them. So then at that time, maybe we have to be Mikalo them.
Right.
So then he did something virtuous, or maybe not exact, by just being Mikalo Apom. Zev, are you with us? I can't hear you, but I believe you. You're not. Your mic is off. All right. Anyways, this is the Nakuda, which I believe is important. Shimon and Levi, Achalkim b'Yisrael, he spread them out because they have a tendency. And it seems that it was actually part of who they are. That's what I understand. It wasn't just an act, it was part of who they are. And it was cursed. Yet, HaKadosh Baruch Hu had them become spread out in Klal Yisrael and use that koach for something positive. So even the most negative things have a place of positive expression. And that's what was done. That was done with them. So I had once, and this is again, I believe this is really a very important Nakuda. The Bali Musar said the following mashal. A person has a closet full of good fruits and vegetables. He opens it up and it smells like a rotten potato. So a smart person takes out the rotten potato and everybody else just throws out the whole thing because it smells all over. I learned something from my son. My son came home from yeshiva and he taught me something which, if you share this with your wives, they probably won't believe you. But when it happens and you do it, they will be amazed. Some Friday afternoon, the cholent in my house burnt. So my son said, no problem. Take some cardboard, cut it up, stuff it into the cover of the pot, and let it cook. And I said, what's going to happen? He said, all of the burnt flavor will go into the carton and the cholent will not taste burnt. Rabbi say it works. Okay? Now, don't have your wife burn the cholent this week just to try it out. Okay? But it does work, and it's a fascinating thing. And what it taught me is this: I've seen in other things in science, even when you have something that became a part of something else, how can you get the smoke, smell, taste out of food? There are ways to do it. You can actually do it. You can get it out and you can revitalize your cholent that it can be 100% tasty. Okay? This is a nakuda that we have to reinforce. We have an issue, and Reuven switched the beds, and Chazal said that it was an Avera. So what kind of a label do we give him? There are many things that people do time and time again, and people label them, and sometimes the label's correct, sometimes it's not. A person says, you hire a worker, and you say you have to be on time. And after a week's time, after the first week, he comes late one day. 3 weeks later, he's coming late 2 days a week. And, it gets worse and worse. Finally, the boss goes over to him and says, why are you coming late? He says, I didn't come late. He says, well, how come you late yesterday? So he tells you an excuse. And it sounds like a pretty good excuse. He said, why were you late the day before? And he gives you a different excuse. So how many excuses do you accept until you say that these aren't excuses? He just comes late. So there are things, when we come late to davening, we say that it's a chad pami thing that happened. The people around us say, no, you're a late comer to davening. Right? So we have what's called a funhouse mirror. When we look at ourselves, we interpret each case as an individual incident, and it's not mashkif, does not reflect how we are for real. And when somebody else does it, we make a composite picture. We say, this is what you are. Which one is real? And I challenge to say, sometimes this one, sometimes that one, sometimes both, and sometimes neither. There's no rule. There's no rule. But what we do learn from this Rashi, and this is the Nakuda which I wanted to share with you, that we have the ability to separate them. And as was mentioned, they can become disengaged from the personality that the person has. So let's say, he's what?
You're saying he can improve himself.
He can improve himself sometimes, but you can, and this is actually, the Sol Salanta discusses it, you can actually change a midah. It's not only, no. In other words, in the secular world, a person who was an alcoholic is always an alcoholic. It's just laying in him dormant. Al Yedei Torah, a person can actually change. He can rewire himself, which is not, it's not common, it's not easy. Rabbi Yisrael Salanter said that it's easier to learn all of Shas than to change one midah. But it can be done. I think I know two people in my life that changed the midah. That changed. It's an amazing thing. They're actually different people than they were, 20 years before. But it took them a lot of hard work. And this is an akuda. When we come and we see people, we have to learn to detach, because many things that we see are not really part of who they are, and they don't associate with who they are. They will tell you that's not part of who I am. That's just circumstantial. That's not who I really am. So if we want to have Avas Yisrael, we want to appreciate the people around them, we have to look at them in a different light. And I'd like to just discuss Anakuda, how do you look at somebody in a different light? I have children, Baruch Hashem, and one of the challenges of raising children is that children tend to bicker, argue, fight, scream, pinch, hug. They do all kinds of strong emotional responses one to the other. And sometimes I have two kids that are at each other's neck. Now, one of the rules in parenting is sometimes let them kill each other and it'll be over. If you get involved, then it's never going to be over. So you have to know when to invoke which parenting tactic. But sometimes you realize you guys have to let this one burn itself out. But as a parent, you want it to be the quickest possible. So one of the gimmicks that I use in this is as follows. I tell Ruvain, I say, okay, you want to go beat Shimon up and scream at him and pinch him, whatever it is, it's fine. Just take 2 minutes out. Tell me something good about him. Right after you tell me something good about him, I'll let you go right at him. And, he really wants to beat up his brother. So he has no choice because he can't beat Mita. So he has no choice but to think of something positive to say about his brother. And once he does that, I ruin the fight. You understand? Because I brought some positive emotion that eclipses a little bit of the negative emotion. And usually that, when you can use that tool, then it's useful. I used it yesterday. I had a situation of a shidduch that the mechatanim were at each other's throat, and rightfully so. And the shadchan came to me for advice, and I told, rightfully so, means each one did something wrong that was major, and each one said the other one is terrible. Maybe we shouldn't do a shidduch with such a family like this. This was the situation yesterday. Okay? They didn't call me back today, Baruch Hashem. Anyways, so I speak to the shadchan, and I said, just point out to each side some of the things that the other side was mevater on. And then it'll just calm down the whole situation. You'll bring some positive stuff into the thing. So when we have a question, who is that really? Is that person a good person? Is that person a bad person? We have to learn how to be able to say orur apo. But it's not orur them, because even if it is part of them, there's a way to take it out of them. And sometimes that's our job. We, as an outsider, sometimes can help a person release something that's negative in him. And that's really something which is very, very important. Sometimes by talking things out, it can be done. And I'm going to end off with a story about the Chavetz Chaim and Reb Chaim Brisker, which shows how sometimes somebody who can be the biggest enemy is the biggest friend, and the biggest friend, the biggest enemy. So Beis Halevi died shortly after Reb Chaim came to the city of Brisk. And Reb Chaim fell into a state of semi-depression because he felt that by the fact that he came to the city of Brisk, Ein Shtei Malachim, Mishtamshim Bekeser Echad, and therefore the fact that he came to Brisk, that's what caused his father to die. And the Chavetz Chaim got wind that the Chaim has such thoughts, and he heard that many people went to Reb Chaim to try to talk him out of this nonsense of blaming himself for that which happened. And the Chavetz Chaim said, I'll take care of the issue. So Chavetz Chaim went down to Brisk, and he went to be Menachem Ovo Reb Chaim. And Reb Chaim tells Chavetz Chaim, my father died, it's really my fault because I came here. And he stops to wait to hear the Chavetz Chaim interject and try to refute his line of thinking. And the Chavetz Chaim says, yeah, let me hear. And Reb Chaim continues on his long-winded explanation and all the proofs that this is what happened and it's all his fault. And when he's finished and he has no more wind in his sails, so he slumps down in his chair, and Reb Chaim is lost in thought. And he's thinking and thinking. And then Reb Chaim says, however, it's possible to say, and he built a system of thought to refute everything that he said. And when he was finished, the Chavetz Chaim got up and left. And if I'm not mistaken, the Chavetz Chaim said, only Reb Chaim Brisker could be Menachem Reb Chaim Brisker. Only he has that ability to go plunge into the depth of his personal personality and find the mole, the thing that's misplaced, and put it into the right place. We can only sometimes, as a friend, be the sounding board to have the person do it. Sometimes we can be the person to suggest, to cajole, to get the person to do the right thing. But we should take this lesson from Yaakov Avinu. The person may have a terrible midah. He has a midah of kas, or apom, but not or the person. The person is a Yiddish neshama, a beautiful person, and even if it is part of his person, being that it can be modified and changed, the person, the ikar neshama that he has, is taka chelek elokam imal, unblemished, and we should learn to cherish the neshama, not only ours, but all of the people around us also.